What's up, guys? This is Ian here with another episode of Google Sheets for beginners. This will be the first of our Google Sheets for Draft League series. I know I've mentioned that I'm a big part of the Draft League community a few times, and I run at least one doc at the moment, one and a half. So I wanted to sort of go over how to run a doc and how to create your own doc. So I'd like to preface this video by telling you that you should follow along if you want to. Otherwise, don't feel the pressure to even watch the video, because honestly, it's really helpful if you're trying to build a base skeleton for a doc or go a little bit further. This is going to be quite a bit of a lengthy one. I'll probably split this into two parts because there's some stuff that I just want to reference first, and then we'll go over stuff with a completed document. So we're going to start by creating. So let's just list off kind of the sheets that you'd want to start with. To build a doc. And if you don't know how to create more sheets, I talk about that in my other videos in the series. If you're not looking to, um, if you're not understanding what I'm doing. So you can see we've sheet one here. I'm just going to create 3 more because that's kind of what we need to start with first. So what I'm going to start with here is we're just going to rename these so it makes it easier for ourselves. We'll start with a rules page. We'll start with a tier list. And we'll start with a rosters page, and we'll start with a team page format. So those are the 4 sheets we're kind of going to go over today in creation. And yeah, we'll just sort of build each of them, and then you can follow along as we go. So we'll start with rules here. I always like to start with a title. So I don't know, maybe we'll make it over to J, just call it rules, and we will center it. Make it nice and fresh. Maybe we'll make the text blue. Maybe a darker blue. Maybe we'll bold it. Maybe we'll put it in caps instead. Rules. There. That's a nice start. And we'll just finish that off with a box. That looks nice. But now we're going to have to write out the rules. So we're just going to merge. Just make 3 basic rules maybe. Or maybe I'll go through and just write some other things down here. Rules. Got some pretty little trees over there. It's my best Bob Ross impression. So we'll just keep going as we can. Rule 1, each coach must draft 11 Pokemon. These 11 must be selected with 1 tier 1, 1 tier 2, 2 tier 3, 1 tier 4, 1 tier 5, 1 mega, and then 4 free picks with 400 points to work with, period. 2. Tier 1 Pokemon cost 180 points. Tier 2 Pokemon cost 120 points. Tier 3 Pokemon cost 100 points. Tier 4 Pokemon cost 60 points. And Tier 5 Pokemon cost 40 points. Now, obviously, this is subjective to using a tiered system rather than a point system. Shoutouts to Jay, because points leagues are better. But I like to do it this way sometimes. Pokemon from the banned tier are banned and may not be drafted. And then we'll do insert Z crystal rule here, Z crystal usage rule here, slash Z crystal drafting rule here. 5, it's usually good to talk about banned clauses, etc. So we're talking like baton pass clause, evasion clause, And what else is there? Mega Evolution Clause and Omni Boost Clause. We'll just sort of lay those out as the base ones. And then normally you're probably going to want to talk about movesets being legal. So Pokemon movesets must be legally obtainable in Ultra Sun / Ultra Moon through breeding, move tutors, or level up or event. Level up or events. And I don't know, we'll just put a last one in here. Personally, in my own league, I like having more rules rather than less, sort of explain things in a little bit more detail, but we're just sort of running through some quick ones here. So let's say banned items. Banned items include insert Z crystals here, insert other banned items like gems here. So that's kind of what you would make a rules page like in my mind, and then I would go ahead and box this all off, and then I would go ahead and just delete these, and we'll delete these. Now for the columns, sorry, not for the columns, just delete the columns. For the rows, you're just going to want to sort of do them in batches. It's a lot faster. So I scrolled down, and we're just going to do 372 in a row. There we go. Now we've trimmed that down. So there's a nice rules page there. Nice and finished compared to the tier list, which looks kind of ugly. But the rules page looks nice and it's all good to go. So now we'll move on to the tier list. I'll have a certain way that I like to do this usually. I'll just sort of shrink things and we'll go from there. So we're going to shrink you to half, you to half, you to half, you to half, and then we'll sort of go from there. So merge you, and then we'll put 180 tier 1. And then actually I'm going to center everything because that makes a lot more sense to me. So we're just going to center you. Whoops. There we go. And then just put some rows there and there. I don't know why this didn't include that, but there you go. And then we'll do a bottom one. And we'll do open. And then we can extend that later. But now we'll just choose some Pokemon to put in tier 1. Oh, right, that's why I didn't do that yet. Whoops, my bad. I'm just going to work with a list that I have over on the side here. It's my own tiering list, so some of them are going to be weird, and I might move some around a little bit, but this is kind of a lengthy process, just merging all these. So if you want to skip ahead, you feel free to. I might just chat a little bit about things. I'll kind of use this as an opportunity to update on the UPBA videos and talk about maybe why they aren't coming out anymore. I'm not a part of that league anymore. There was some scummy behavior from the owner, and then I pulled some scummy stuff myself. So I'm not going to go into much more detail than that. I don't think I need to. But I don't respect the owner of that league. He was kind of an ass, and that's kind of where I'm just going to leave it for now. I don't know how much I want to go in depth with that, if I make a separate video or not, or what's going to happen there. I'm just going to go up to 35, which is actually 36, because row 1 we've used as the tier, so there we go. And then we'll just copy and paste open all the way down. Faster this way. Yeah, I don't know how much I want to go into talking about the UPBA. Yeah, like I said, I might do a separate video on it, but we have had quite a few of us leave that league. So let's start with something basic. Start with the Azumarill. Blacephalon is generally the next one in alphabetical order. Celesteela, Chansey, Clefable. Obviously, these are up for debate, and normally before starting a league, you would want to have maybe some votes on things that you don't think belong in a tier or not. It's really up to you. Or if you're allowing trapping, like in this league, clearly I'm allowing trapping because there's Dugtrio and Gothitelle both in tier 1, and they're both pretty bad Pokemon without Arena Trap. Dran, Hippowdon. I personally like putting Hippowdon in Tier 1 because it's a very bulky sand setter. I like having both the sand setters in Tier 1 normally. Typically, I will leave most of the weather setters together. Kyurem Black, Landorus, Therian, Latios, Manaphy. Whoops, sorry. Yeah, I like leaving most of the weather setters together because Raikou is debatable for Tier 1, Salamence 2. I've seen leagues where they're both Tier 2. Tapu Fini. In this area is where you would think maybe you're going to debate Tapu Lele, Terrakion, Thundurus, Incarnate. So clearly we've got to do some more merging here because that's not enough for Tier 1. There's still some more Pokemon. And I may not go through the entire tier list. Maybe we'll just do Tier 1 to start off, and then I'll sort of like build the rest, and then you can go through and merge and add the Pokemon that you want. In the second part, I will show off the tier list that I've created completely from scratch, and you can sort of, based off of that if you'd like. Not sure how many more of these I can do. Always better to do more, and then you can unmerge them later. Always better to do more. So now we've got Thundurus, Therian, Tornadus, Therian, which is a lot better than Tornadus Incarnate in my opinion, Tyranitar, Victini, Volcanion, Weavile, Zapdos, and Zygarde 50%. So I did go a little bit over. Just a note, I did not insert a rule about franchising, but if that was your thing, then you should do that. That's definitely something that can come in handy if you are planning on having franchising rules, which at the moment I am not. So now we're going to do this, and then how many more down does this go? So on my own dock, I have Tier 5 just as one column, but you can obviously make it more. Maybe we'll get to that a little bit later, but I'm just going to copy some more opens and paste them. Because everything is open. Hey, everything is open. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Done. There's Tier 1 done. So now we can move on, and I'll just sort of format this for Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4, Tier 5, and the Megas and Band. I find it a little bit more clean to keep the Megas on one row. Sorry, so this is no 120, Tier 2. If you're looking into Z moves and Z points, which is something that I'll be looking to in the future, then you should maybe have a Z cost on these as well. That's usually pretty helpful. So Tier 2, and then obviously you would merge to your heart's content and list all your Tier 2 mons. I find merging a lot of fun. It can be a little bit tedious, but if you're a nice organized person, then it's generally not the biggest problem. Generally not the biggest problem. And whoops, whoopsie daisy. Just that side. There we go. And it didn't register there. There's Tier 3. And we'll have you, have you. If you ever have to add more columns, it's nice. But the way that this works out is that you have the space with 3 cells and you're not extending anything, so it looks cleaner up here. And you still have the 1 cell for open, which doesn't take up too much space, honestly. And then when you would replace, well, I'll go through in a sec with the Tier 1s and do an example for that. 60. I'm trying not to miss anything as I go through this, just because I'm not totally comfortable in this setting. I am when I talk about my league matches, but it's a little bit different when I'm just sort of talking to myself, building a document. Excuse me. But we'll go through and build it. And I can give some examples about things. In the next episode, I'll go into a little bit more depth on certain aspects of the dock. This is sort of going to be, like I said before, this is going to be a very skeleton heavy episode rather than building the entire dock in one episode, which would be very boring and also very, very long. All right, so now we're up to Tier 5, so we'll do a Mega real quick. Same thing. And what I do in my own dock, which you'll see in the next episode, is There's prices for megas, and there's different mega tiers. So we'll say this one's mega tier 1. Um, and let's do the bottom line. And we'll do this because it needs it. And what else? What else? What else? What else? Ah, yes. Now we need to add some more over here. So we need at least 4. Keep it consistent. Shrink, shrink, shrink. Oops, sorry. Shrink. So we don't actually need AC. Not bad. X. Put that over there. Separate those, and we'll call this one band. And then you would do the same thing as you would for these by merging cells and then putting your band Pokemon in. So I'll just do one example. First one that I have on here is Aegislash. So that would be your first band Pokemon. And you just continue down the list until you have what you want. This is a little bit less clean than I would normally have it. Normally I have a cell dedicated in between each tier that's just shrunken to sort of separate the lines off a little bit more, but this will work for our purposes. We're kind of just so yeah, let's go through, and I would normally color these. So let's say tier 1 is red. Let's say tier 2, and then we'll bold all these to make it look a little bit better. Tier 2 maybe is orange. Tier 3, let's say, is yellow. Tier 4 is green. Tier 5 is aquamarine. Mega can be this ugly blue. And then band, let's say, is dark blue. Dark blue. So now you can see, you can't really see band on this very well. So what you're going to want to do is change the color to something that stands a little bit more against the blue. That red and blue is very obvious, and it shows that it's band. And so that's sort of how it would work for me. Then I would normally go through, and we'll just use tier 1 as an example. I would change the color of these cells to this gray, make it stand out a little bit more, and then I would change all these. Now we've used red, so I would go through and change them to this red. And so now it looks a little bit cleaner, looks a little bit more poppin'. And then if you were to, say, pick a Azumarill, and let's use my team as an example because I'm the Ladder Lantern, I would, in some cases, I would use the strike through here to show that that pick is gone. But you would always change open to LL because I'm the Ladder Lantern, and then you can leave it like that, or you can change it to the color of the team, which I always like to do. So now people know that Azumarill is taken by Ladder Lantern. They can move on with their lives, or you could do a mixture of both. Kind of is a little bit too much in my mind. Creates more work when you're trying to edit free agents and stuff. Oh, that's another sheet that we might have that you might want to have is transactions, but it's not super important at the moment. So next up is a rosters page. And sort of how I'm going to go about this is taking a little bit different of an approach. As you can tell, I like shortening the columns over here, but in the rosters page, we're kind of going to elongate one of them. First is first, though, we're going to merge these, and we'll call this team name, and then we're going to merge these, and we'll call this coach name. I'll sort of do one example, and then from there you can copy paste to determine it based on how many teams you have in the league. I'm also going to center all of these. You don't need to delete all the columns and stuff, but for my purpose, I'm only going to need these columns, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete all of these for now. And I'm only going to need up to 16. So 17 onwards, I'm going to delete as well. Just to make it easier on myself for the purposes of the video. Obviously, don't do this if you're going to extend your rosters page because it'll be a pain in the ass for you to deal with it later. I'm going to do one big border around all of it because I know there needs to be one. Then team name, coach name, we'll do a border around that. They don't necessarily need to be separated themselves because it's sort of obvious, but separating it from the rest of it looks a little bit better. I'm actually going to extend A to about 1.5 to fit the entire Pokemon's name in. Generally, there's some examples that are a little bit longer, like Kyurem Black or Thundurus Incarnate. If that doesn't fit, then you need to extend it a little bit more. That's kind of a longer name, and that's sort of what we'll go with there. But to start off, this one will be Pokemon, this one will be tier, this one will be points, and then we'll have, insert Pokemon. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. It didn't really make a difference, but you can go insert Pokemon here. Generally, I like to border this off a little bit, makes it look a little bit nicer. Then you've got everything going down here. So let's say you got your Mega, you have your 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, and then you have free, 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 free. So that's kind of where you're at. I usually like to make this one total and this one remaining. Sorry, bottom. Total remaining, and then we'll say, what's the total normally? Total. Well, you start it with 1,000 points always, so we know that this one's going to be 180, this one's 120, this one's 100, this one's 100, this one's 60, and this one's 50. So what we'll do for the total is we'll sum up those. So we'll do equals sum of these, and for the, 40. My bad, 40. And then for remaining, we'll just do equals 1,000 minus, how do I want to do this? 1,000 minus this. Yeah, that's how we'll do it. But we're actually going to change the sum not just to C10. What I'm going to do is adjust this one. Yeah, we're just going to delete all that, and we'll just adjust it to being Mega all the way down to this free point, which should still equal 600, right? But when you add something in here, let's say you take a tier 1 as your free, then it changes everything. And so eventually your total should equal 1,000, and your remaining should equal 0 in most cases. Obviously, people don't always have to take that, but that's kind of where you're going with that. I would separate these, and I would separate these. Oh, that's fine. Points, I would normally just block off a little bit there so that it's kind of a separate thing. For Pokemon, Mega, what color did we choose for Mega? We chose that nice blue. So I do that. 1, we did red. 2, we did orange. 3, we did yellow. 4, we did green. That's not yellow. 4, we did green. And 5, we did blue. Then you can kind of decide what you want to do for free. I normally do gray. And I would normally bold all of this just to make it look a little bit brighter, stand out a little bit more. Let's say we chose a tier, something that's common as a tier 2 Mega would be Mega Pidgeot. Mega Pidgeot's usually a nice tier 2. Mega Pidgeot. I don't know why that's not centered. I tried getting everything centered. Why was that not centered? That's odd. We'll just center all of them. Mega Pidgeot. Now, Mega Pidgeot in tier 2 normally gives you 40 points. So what you'd want to do instead is go minus 40. And then it'll take it away from your total and add it to your remaining points. So then from there you can go wherever. I'm not going to go through and build a whole draft plan. But normally I would change this based on, I would change the coloration of this based on the team name as well. So let's just go with mine again, use me as an example. Liner Lantern, coach name Ian. And I like to be this blue. That's normally my color. So then I would do that over here and here. Over here I would do the secondary of that blue, and here I would do the secondary of that blue. And then down here I would do the primary, and down here I would do the primary. And so the colors, you can tell the difference, and it makes it look a little bit prettier, kind of in a rainbow scenario. I know Magic likes his teams purple, now that he's moved on to the New York Meloettas, so he would do a purple one for himself, and that's sort of where we've gone from there. But the formula is kind of the important part here to count up the remaining points. The rosters tab is really useful for keeping track of that and making sure that people are on pace to get everything respectively that they need. This is also a page that we're going to be referring back to, and if you don't understand what I mean by cell referencing and stuff like that, you should check out my intermediate formulas video. I go over it in that, talking about cell referencing, and so we'll just leave Mega Pidgeot here as an example for now as we move on to the team page format. Um, this is kind of my favorite part of the doc creation. I love team page format. You can kind of go in a bunch of different areas that you want to go with this one. And I'm just gonna kind of base this off of the NCL page, which is also based off of the um, sorry, it's also based off of the LET page and the GBA page. So to start off with, we're going to make a space for the logo. So I'm going to shrink these a little bit, shrink them. I need 4, and then we do 4 by 7 or 8. 4 by 8, we'll just merge it, give it a border, and we'll call this one logo space. And you can kind of just put a logo in there. I'm not going to go into it because I don't really want you guys to see all my downloads. Um, there's some private information on my computer to do with schoolwork and stuff like that, so I'm not going to go super in depth with it, but that's sort of how we're going to go with there. Then I would maybe put a space here, so we're just going to shrink E and F. Now this is the part of the page that you want everyone to see, so kind of, well, sorry, it's the part of the doc that you want everyone to see and to be looking at, because then they can reference their own things like that. And I'll actually shrink G, H, and I as well. I've gone a little bit fancy with my NCL doc that you guys will see in the next episode of this doc creation. Um, I've kind of gone a little bit overboard with some of the formulas and stuff like that to make it look really nice and to make it automated a little bit more. So that's kind of what we're going to go with for now. So now I would maybe call this, hang on, I'll just make sure that all of these are centered. Centered is always the nicest way for it to look. Close one, team name, coach, coach. And usually it's helpful to have time zone as well. We'll just box all this off, separate it from the rest of the doc. Here you can either manually type in their name or you can reference it from the rosters page. So what cell was that on? It's we can just call it A1. So go equals rosters A1, and then bam, Ladder Lantern pops up, equals rosters A2, bam, Ian shows up, and then I would manually type in my own time zone, which is PST. So there you go, kind of basing it off of that. Yes, it looks nice. A little bit of white space is never bad, especially when it's shrunken down a little bit. You can either merge it and sort of make it like that, which looks a little bit ugly with the borders and stuff. So I would maybe not merge those cells, but you can kind of leave them there for future reference, maybe helpful later. Right underneath logo space, we're actually going to create one big merge here, and we'll color it black and make the text white so you can actually read it. And we'll say equals that cell. There we go. So now it's got my team name right underneath the logo. So the team name pops up twice. Then underneath that, we have one that's 3. Again, black with the white. I'll do current roster. So this is kind of how I would set up the kill leaderboards and stuff like that. I would normally do another one that's just fully black. Don't even need to merge that one because it's all just going to show up as black. And then here you'd start sort of putting your Pokemon down. Whoops. So there's going to be 11. So we can call it 1, 2, and then 3. Go down for now. Just to help you reference this back later. 5, 6, 7, 8. In this case scenario, you only have 11. In some leagues, especially points-based leagues, you can normally draft between 9 to 11 Pokemon, and so these might just be a space if you're doing a points-based league. The tier list obviously isn't very helpful for you if you're doing a points-based league. So there we go, we've got 1 through 11, and I'll come back to that in a bit. Up here, was it 3? Yeah, we'll go 3 across, 3 across, call this kills, and deaths. Now in here, I like to call this one direct, passive, total, direct, passive, total. Then maybe we'll just shrink J down, shrink K down, shrink L down, shrink M down for now, and that's kind of where we'll stop for now. This one can be the differential page. If you try and do plus slash minus, I talked about this in the formulas video. You need to do an apostrophe, otherwise, whoops. Yeah, if you try and do that, it'll just show up as L11. That's not right. But if you're trying to do plus minus, then it'll just, excuse me, sorry about that, sneezing. You just need to begin it with an apostrophe if you're not doing it in a formula. So, and then it'll show up as text. So yeah, you can see it's plus minus. Maybe we'll do games played, games won, and the tier that the Pokemon came from. So kills is always nice to be in green. Deaths, kind of a red thing to me. Maybe we'll make these a little bit bold. Maybe we'll sort of separate these off in a bit. If you're doing average stats and stuff like that, or you just want it to be totaled, then do total down here as well. That's sort of cool. From here, we'll sort of just go through and box these off, sort of separate a little bit out for ourselves. For direct passive total and direct passive total, I like usually making these a little bit smaller of a font, just so it kind of looks a bit better, because then you're not doing that sort of shenanigan things over there, direct shenanigans. Down here, I like doing the exact same thing, actually. Direct passive total, just in case people miss it above, they can catch it down low. Should be the exact same thing. We made this 8 up above, 8 down low. And then we will box off this one, box off this one, box off this one, and box off this one for now. Nice one on the bottom, looking a little bit better, and we'll box these off, and we'll box these off, and then we'll box these off. Maybe with one down the middle too, to separate them a little bit more. So now you got that. I usually like doing a little bit brighter or less of a green for the kills. So just make that a little bit less red for the deaths. Whoops. Just like we color-coded for the rosters page, and just like we color-coded, whoops, that's yellow. There we go. And just like we color-coded for the other page. Now the totals, this might take you a little bit while, but I'll just do one just in case. So we'll do sum of this plus this, and then we'll do equals sum of this plus this to sort of get your total kills and total deaths. And then from plus minus, what you want to do is this cell minus this cell gives you their plus minus. So that's kind of how I would format that. For the total down here, we would say sum of all of your direct kills equals sum of all of your passive kills. Excuse my and then sum. I haven't been capitalizing all of these. Sum of all those. Same deal with the deaths. We'll just use one Pokemon as an example because I already left it over there in the rosters page. Just to show you how this table might work if you don't understand. Sum of all those. So now you've got totals here at the bottom, total of each one, total of each one. So if you were to change it, well, bam, your plus minus changes too. You got a passive kill. Oh, look, your plus minus changes. Then you have 2 passive deaths. Oh, look, your plus minus is back to 0. And you have 2, 2. So it's all works out. You just delete them and it's fine. As long as you're not deleting the one with the formula, it's fine. It'll just change back to what it is. Over here, I would maybe make these orange. I kind of like orange for these. Maybe separate this off. Separate this off. Separate this off. It's not that complicated, just lots of formatting. Maybe put a top on and put a bottom on. And then I would make all of this a little bit lighter of an orange to give some contrast from the titles and what's not a title. In terms of tier, oh, and I would normally also do this. So I would separate each line as its own box. Split it off. You kind of get the gist there, but that's what we'll do. Now for this one, what I'm actually going to do is go rosters. what was it? Mega Pidgeot is A4. Whoops, not sure why I did that. Rosters A4. So now it's referencing Mega Pidgeot, and then we would go rosters A5, roster, what is happening? Rosters A6, all the way down. Obviously A5 is tier 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So you just go all the way down to rosters 14, and then it would go from there. You can copy out the tiers. There is a formula for that I haven't figured out on my own. It's something to do with figuring out the tier list and stuff like that. It's a little bit more complicated than even I'm willing to delve into at the moment, but you can do that. Otherwise, for the tier, I would maybe just put minus 40, and then what did we use for the mega? We used that crappy blue. Whoops, just dragged it over. There we go. So now I'd highlight it minus 40, and then you can tell that it's a mega. Obviously, it's obviously already a mega pick. Yeah. Over here, I like to do the standing myself. We'll just color it black again, make the text white, and we'll call it standing. Whoops, standing. And then over here, I would just sort of extend this out. So 4, yep, 4 on mine. Make black. Currently X place in X conference. There's a way to do a formula for this. I haven't delved too much into it myself, but it sort of cleans it up a little bit here. And then over here, I would maybe do win, loss, diff. There. We'll get into sort of the standing stuff a little bit later in my NCL doc, but for now you can just sort of fill those in as you go. Maybe you want to manually fill that in after each match. It's a little bit easier if you do formulas instead, because then it can keep track of it a little bit better, but that's sort of where you're going. I would not recommend using the total plus minus here. That's not something that I would recommend using, because then it's going to screw this differential up, when someone makes a drop for a free agent, unless you're willing to go the extra mile and put a free agent differential thing into your document. Now, this is kind of where I wanted to stop the first episode. You can obviously go a lot more in depth with the team page. This is really all you need, is just sort of the list of Pokemon, tracking their kills and their deaths. Games played in games 1 you can even take out. Tier you could take out. The differential is kind of important. If you want to get a little bit more fancy with it, there's some other stuff that I'll show off in my NCL document, and you can kind of build it from there. Average stats, abilities, hazard setting, hazard removing, clerical abilities, that sort of stuff can go on. I personally like to post the sprites into my own documents, and I've gone a little bit in depth with some data validation stuff going on in my own document as well. But that's sort of talk for the next episode, I believe. So I will talk to you guys in the next episode of Google Sheets for Draft League.